My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. That's Allied Universal stalking. And that's the entity that is stalking by plane, doing the OVITT Family Community Library in Engineer Light. And what is prompting that right now is I go into my bag, the entity begins stalking with light, stalking in the path, in close proximity because they're maintaining ongoing surveillance via Euclid Avenue. It's not traffic. The fake moon is over me. This is where the entity is doing this under the fake sun in the engineer light. And the entity is hovering over the 280 North Lemon Apartments. Doing so, keeping me under surveillance. And this is where those gang members, the Ontario Police, just like Allied Universal, they're gang members. The people of the state, these are gang members that engaged in criminal summoning together. That's audible noise and engineer light. You already saw the multiple shadows. That's a stalker who knows who I am, just like the entity that is stalking using commercial planes, okay? And they're doing so at 12:29 in the morning. The Ontario Police exhibited severe mental illness, engaging in gang stalking, wearing police uniforms under the guise of having a noise complaint, where they are engaged in stalking and furtherance of murder in actuality with regard to the pattern of conduct. It's the same thing and the same unlawful threat when you're committing a kidnapping pursuant to the municipal code that you merely refer to as a means of stalking someone conspicuously and masquerading as one exercising the duties of an officer. That's engaged in actually criminal surveillance, which is the pattern of conduct that the Ontario International Airport is engaging in. You also don't have authority under any section where the circumstances of a targeted individual who is criminally under surveillance by that same agency has created those circumstances economically to engage in this very method of stalking. You create homelessness and then you kidnap pursuant to any sort of violation and also defame. That's the entity that's going to prison. That's the entity that engaged in criminal summoning right here where that entity is stalking, and you saw them and heard them on video stalking, seeking to and failing at criminally defaming anybody. They will be diagnosed with that same malicious conduct. This is P.O.C. It's 12:30 in the morning where they are very much obsessed with me and concerned with me. Stalking as an entity, contrary to what the demon-possessed psychopaths who are delusional, not getting $1 and not avoiding prison. No airport, no police department, no gang stalking ambulances, and the entities engaging in what is going to be criminal conduct resulting in disbanding. This is P.O.C., and this is the evidence putting Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, who are still targeting and furtherance of murder, obstructing justice, never conducting any investigation. P.O.C. It's 1:14 a.m. The Ontario International Airport is maintaining criminal surveillance, stalking me, in other words, while I'm still at the OVITT Family Community Library, doing so in concert with the people of the state. I took a picture of a male, a Latino male, who is stalking in the path, doing so by just maintaining ongoing gibberish, talking to you, even if you're ignoring them. It's audible activity in the engineer light. They are gang stalking and furtherance to murder, even while they engage in that, and that is the entity that is also stalking in that specific environment. The entity is maintaining plane activity over the same senior citizen complex. The fake moon is over the top of my head, and I captured that in images where the airport is speaking to what is state surveillance that I'm subject to at 1:14 in the morning. This is the unlawful threat to my life while the entity is gang stalking me 24 hours a day. This is the entity that's committing kidnapping. This is the entity that's conspiring murder. And this is the entity that is putting Jason Fields in prison. He was never committing any investigation. The federal government was not investigating me. There was never a lawful investigation of me or anything in my life. The entity's been engaged in this criminal system. The entity's been engaged in what is stealing from me for years. And upon my becoming aware of suspicious and conduct and treatment in the workplace and by people in my life, and I become aware of it, I begin documenting. The entity begins gang stalking me in this overt, obvious manner, which I have been maintaining in the body of evidence that is the P.O.C. The entity engages in what is claiming that you're investigating. That's the entity that wants to have the guise of having some reason that is supposed to be legitimate for following me around. They're stalking while they've been engaged in what is criminal monitoring, stalking me while keeping me under surveillance as I'm being gang stalked. And this is an entity that is a hitman conspiring my murder while claiming to be engaging in any investigation. The entity is engaging in what is stalking me while you're claiming to have been engaged in some sort of investigation that was never warranted under the law, ever. Everything that the entity has stated about my character is an outright patent lie. So that's the entity that is also clearly not engaging in any investigation. It's stalking, and it's stalking in concert with the city of Ontario that's engaging in that pattern of conduct. This is speaking to a statewide system while I can show you the pattern of conduct anywhere that I go. All right. This is the P.O.C. It's 1:14 a.m. The entity is targeting me with impunity. That's relevant to what is sentencing prosecution for an entire government that's engaging in this conduct with that level of disregard. You're documenting me stalking you. So what? I'm going to keep stalking you. So what? You're talking about federal prison. So what? You're engaging in what is the use of even the internet and exposing it on the venue of the internet where everyone is aware about what you're doing. You're not secretly doing. So what? That's the entity that's going to be subject to martial law as well. Okay. This is P.O.C. Engaging in that is Saris Regis Group, the Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, using what are the Tesla chargers. They're engaging in surveillance. They're doing so at that apartment where I'm showing you the fake sun rise and set also. That's relevant context where the airport is stalking with the people of the state. The airport is stalking with the entity that's engaging in what is present stalking under things like a fake sun and a fake moon. That is the evidence of surveillance of a satanic nature, which is equally criminal and terrorism by that entity. It's P.O.C. And it is, by the way, Saturday, January 3rd, 2025. This is P.O.C. Also, I just want to document, I captured the video of the entity stalking me by plane at the OVITT Family Community Library where I remain, where not only are there no takeoffs and landings that are going to reconcile this plane activity that I'm documenting, there are also no planes scheduled as the entity has published. The so-called Ontario International Airport that is maintaining plane activity over me at 1:14 in the morning. The last planes were scheduled at 11:59 p.m. That's Volaris, American Airlines, United Airlines, and Volaris had a flight scheduled to depart at 11:02 p.m. There are no other flights scheduled until 12:42 a.m., which was Volaris, and then 5:05 a.m. is the next published flight for January 3rd, departing from the Ontario International Airport, and that would be flight 5:05 a.m. and then 5:10 and 5:20. United Airlines, Southwest, and Southwest Airlines. United Airlines is flight number UA2446 going to Denver, and Southwest Airlines at 5:10 and 5:20. Flight number WN21 to Phoenix and flight number WN4851 to Nashville. And those are scheduled for 5 in the morning. There are no flights published on the website. This is relevant context regarding stalking under all circumstances, where the P.O.C. is in and of itself unilaterally establishing that an airport is stalking me. Not only that, the airport is stalking with regard to what is an entity that is stalking, including the gang members of the Ontario Police, who are referring to the people of the state, admittedly engaging in criminal summoning, stalking me together, also with the intent to obstruct justice as I document this criminal pattern of conduct, which is proof evidence that there was never any legitimate investigation. I've been subject to gang stalking for years. I've been subject to what is theft and theft of fraud, identity theft by an entity that's been keeping me under surveillance unbeknownst to me while I'm practicing law, while I am working in property management and trying to figure out why I'm being harassed systematically from job to job. This is an entity that's engaging what is gang stalking and further into murder after having already engaged in what is prolonged theft and defaming my character behind my back while I've been maintaining the pattern of conduct as a body of evidence, speaking to what is an inevitable prosecution in court and people like Jason Fields and Tracy Banks who are going to prison. And they are still gang stalking me as the government that is stalking me using commercial planes, a whole airport, a whole population of demons that are not strangers are engaging in that. It's the evidence that Jason Fields and Tracy Banks are still conspiring my murder, and they are going to prison. They're going to federal prison for that. This is P.O.C. It is currently 1:20 a.m. Stance Health Solutions, and Stance is spelled S-T-A-N-C-E, Health Solutions, stalking at Chevron. Got a demon, gang stalking like a bandit under the fake moon, keeping me under surveillance and furtherance of murder, driving this white van, and the logo consists of what are blue characters that spell out Stance Healthcare. They're gang stalking on surveillance cameras at the Chevron at 506 North Euclid Avenue, doing so with the demon that is on surveillance cameras at the ARCO in the white vehicle, engaging in sexual assault and battery. It's a white BMW engaging in surveillance. They're just sitting in the car stalking with light, doing so in furtherance of murder like the people of the state do with the government, which is also why they are going to federal prison. This is establishing the policy, and then you're going to go through the evidence, and everybody that engaged in criminal summoning is going to prison. Everybody that engaged in what is criminal defamation is going to prison. Everybody that engaged in monitoring with the police that are stalking me by helicopters, they share in the elements, they're going to federal prison. This is the entity that's engaging in that with the company ARCO, with the company Chevron, the entity that's engaging in what is the maintenance of ongoing criminal surveillance on the roads and the highways, also in violation of Title 18. Doing so while they are stalking as a population, just like the airport is stalking me at the OVITT Family Community Library, where there's no planes taking off or landing there. There certainly is no landing or takeoff when you're engaging in cartwheels over the senior center. 90MN213. And the sex offender that is driving the white BMW that begins driving off as I approach. Dark tinted windows, 8 Victor Henry Thomas 413, and is doing so at what is 1:35 a.m. in furtherance of my murder with a population of serial killers and vagina monitors. All these stalkers together understand Jason Fields is going to prison for this. This is the pattern of conduct, and so is Tracy Banks. This is axiomatic. I'm establishing what is a government official abusing his position, and his sexual relationship is relevant to his criminal monitoring, to the incentive to target me in order to steal from me based on what is an inappropriate and secretive relationship that he maintained with a mother figure of mine while he was acting like we were friends, by the way, while he's been gang stalking me for years. This is somebody that is going to federal prison for the level of terrorism that I'm subject to. And I want to be clear, Jason Isaac Fields is to date gang stalking me while the people of the state are gang stalking. This is evidence putting him in prison. This is P.O.C. It's 1:36 a.m. All right, first of all, the entity is sounding helicopter activity. They're stalking. Second of all, there's a fake moon over my head. They're stalking. CEASELESS and so-called Sergeant Hall. You have what is R. Lily, all those demons that were engaged in gang stalking. While the entity is engaged in surveillance by the OVITT Family Community Library, they're engaging in what is criminal summoning, threatening to commit kidnapping while they're stalking, engaging in what is violation of Title 18. Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. Their audible activity was also defamatory in furtherance of murdering me, gang stalking as a police department. This is the entity in less than 12 hours, again, stalking me in the specific environment by helicopter while they're exercising fictitious, doing so in that environment where the entity is keeping a fake sun over me all day long and a fake moon at night, in an environment that is not explained away by the artificial light. Those do not create one shadow or two shadow per bulb. Those demons on video engaging in criminal summoning at after 8 p.m. at the OVITT Family Community Library are going to prison, okay? You're going to prison for what I'm documenting. And so is Jason Fields. Those are demons that are mentally ill, not only while they're gang stalking. They're mentally ill while they're still doing it, and you're looking at their pattern. They're stalking me at the library. They're stalking me at the Stater Brothers. They're stalking me at the bus stop. They're committing kidnapping. And then they're stalking as I go from place to place. Nobody is missing this pattern of conduct. They are mentally ill. They're also not getting $1 of my money, and they're going to prison for having been paid for keeping me under surveillance and failing to silence me. To the contrary, you're going to prison for everything that I'm documenting, including while they're engaging in what is retaliatory criminal conduct with the demons that are stalking in the specific environment. That's not traffic. Those are demons that are gang stalking serial killers. And this is going to be what is warranting martial law. Psychopathic pacing. Those demons are stalking by helicopter, flying in circles. Sergeant Hall, S. Cassis, R. Lily, all the demons that refuse to provide their badge numbers while they're engaged in federal stalking, those are federal charges. They're going to prison. This is the entity that's engaging in criminal activity and wearing badges and uniforms and a gun on your hip while you're stalking. You're going to prison. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's going to federal prison, and it includes Mike LORENZ. I'm Ron, where the entity is engaged in what is keeping the fake sun, as I've documented, in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, stalking by the police, stalking by the Ontario International Airport, which is stalking by the police department as well. It's the city of Ontario. They're stalking right now. The Ontario police are being disbanded because they're stalking right now vicariously through the demon-possessed people of the state. These little light-slinging psychopaths and vagina monitors who stalk with impossible light. Conspiring and murder with, I want to be clear, the ignoramuses who would liken themselves to being gang leaders who are masterminds, and they're no masterminds. That's why I'm prosecuting and embarrassing them. Jason Fields is going to prison. He's a serial killer and a rapist. All right, and he's this elderly demon, this wannabe witch who is nothing like me in any regard, Tracy Banks, and they're both going to prison. This is P.O.C. It's currently, by the way, 1:40 a.m. Stalking ongoing at the OVITT Family Community Library, following as I go. And so is this, following under the fake moon. Stalking. Stalking. mentally ill, demons. Deportation, loss of child custody, prosecution as terrorists, and they're going to prison, as I've documented the people of the state, targeting me with the Ontario Police Department, any law enforcement agencies, they're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. I suppose this is supposed to be a takeoff as well. While they've migrated to be closer to me, the library is on the opposite side of this is F Street, so that's E Street. D Street and C Street is where they're stalking at the library. They're stalking with the people of the state. That's not headlights. That's a demon and that's a stalker. That's relevant to what is state surveillance. You're looking at what is the projected shadow of this bench also on the wall, impossible light activity, in addition to the light activity that coexists with what is crossing a path, stalking by an airport in concert with the police department that commit kidnappings in an environment where you do not have authority under the municipal code when you're stalking in furtherance of murder, pursuant to criminal surveillance that you have not exposed in the United States, which is in direct contravention with the oath that you take. And it's also direct evidence that you're severely mentally ill. These are demons that are stalking, engaging in surveillance, P.O.C. And the entities engaging in that while a whole airport is stalking. That's speaking to a population of demons that are stalking. And they do so. Where does the fake sun rise? Right here. Where does the fake sun rise when I'm at a different location, such as the Economy Inn at 9:35 in the morning, where the entity has the fake sun remaining, as I documented yesterday, even at 4:11 p.m. So what is this environment where the entity is stalking by commercial planes, and I've already documented stalking by helicopter, and also stalking via kidnapping, masquerading as police officers? That's the entity that's going to be disbanded and going to federal prison. That's P.O.C. None of their headlights are causing light to ricochet on this wall. Those are demons, and it's the same thing with what is not the sun remaining over the Economy Inn from 4:11 p.m. and is still present at 9:35 in the morning, as though it's still going to be there at 4:11 p.m. the next day, which is what you're expecting with regard to the sun. That's not the sun. This entity is stalking with light while they're criminally monitoring, and these psychopaths are stalking in planes. Stalking as an entire airport, following me up the street. This is what so-called Sergeant Hall, who gave me her badge number, speaking so authoritatively while she's engaged in criminal monitoring, and she's going to prison. Her and all that fake authority is going to federal prison. The same thing with S. Casas, the same thing with R. Lily, and the other demon, and they all refuse to provide their badge numbers while they're engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring, which is an additional federal charge. Threatening my life, stalking me while bearing weapons and exercising authority you don't have in a law. Well, you're stalking me. And you're doing so in furtherance of murder, and Jason Fields is going to prison. This is an entity engaging in surveillance at ARCO, where the entity is stalking with impossible light, not their headlights. Demons that are stalking with light. That's stalking in the path with light. The demons do the same thing when they're walking on the sidewalk in the engineer light. That's called stalking with light. They're doing so at what is 537 North Euclid Avenue. This is P.O.C. It is currently 2:54 a.m. This is all evidence putting more gang members of the Ontario Police in prison. And it's all putting Michael LORENZ in prison as a terrorist leader, conspiring my murder, being paid as a department to keep me under surveillance, which is a shared pattern of conduct. LAPD is putting these demons in prison. Fontana PD is putting these demons in prison. Pomona PD is putting these demons in prison. San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department is putting these demons in prison. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department are putting these demons in prison. The people of the state, these demons, these gargoyles stalked with impossible light and impossibility shared as a city, as a county, as a state, are putting these demons in prison, and they're going to prison as well. A body of evidence of the people of the state stalking me with police departments, and they're going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 2:54 a.m., where the demon-possessed Ontario Police Department would like to monitor with the audible activity as though they have something else better to do, when my vagina is their obsession. They're stalking me, just like a whole airport and a population is at 2:55 a.m. Those are psychopaths that are bad actors. And I'm putting them away. They're going to prison. For real. They're actually going to federal prison. P.O.C. Alrighty, it is still January 3rd, 2026. and it's currently 9:45 a.m. So what the Google Drive will reflect, and by the way, you can access the Google Drive, which is essentially the briefcase regarding the evidence that is prosecuting in real time, and which will also prosecute in the federal tribunal where there shall be no controversy because the case has been prosecuted beyond a reasonable doubt. And it's also been prosecuted to a scientific certainty with regard to the evidence, which is exposing criminal surveillance by an entity, not just one corrupt or bad seed in a department or just even one department. That is insufficient and it is not accurate. That is the entity that is stalking, for example, in Ontario, is exposing the pattern of conduct throughout the state of California, and it's relevant to the pattern of conduct that you are able to identify in any of these United States. What you're going to see on the Google Drive, which is on my website, this is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. Click on the documentation tab. And you will select the P.O.C., which is giving you access to all of the videos, the images that I have captured. And also the P.O.C. podcast is accessible on my website as well. And it'll send you directly to my podcast website. And so that you are listening in real time to the totality of what it is that I have not only published, but updated, because I am subject to ceaseless targeting and furtherance of murdering me. And I am always updating the evidence regarding that ongoing threat to my life that I remain subject to, that the government has created and the government is maintaining, okay? And the government are the people of the state as well. So understand that the people of the state are stalking and the government is stalking as the people of the state are stalking. The people of the state are stalking and they're doing so vicariously in concert with that government while they are engaging in what is criminal surveillance, and it is in furtherance of murder and it is pursuant to criminal acts that this government has already committed. And they continuously engage in surveillance targeting, which is also proven through the specific environment with regard to seeking to obstruct justice. And that includes even the pattern of conduct that's underway, such as criminal summoning, while you're in the midst of documentation. So in other words, my documentation remains or becomes legally relevant because of my status, because I'm being targeted, and I'm also capturing evidence of it. The entity that is then targeting an American citizen who is documenting is posing an escalated threat, an impermissible threat, one that is relevant and a federal court is cognizant of upon federal prosecution, upon federal charges, upon sentencing, upon assessing damages, okay? The entities engage in the P.O.C., in which you'll see on the Google Drive, where I upload everything that I have on an ongoing basis. This is an entity that has the fake sun. If you recall what I documented and I told you to pay attention to it because it's the evidence of what is supernatural, and that supernatural pattern of conduct is relevant to malice, and that is providing context regarding everything that you are witnessing, including conspicuous stalking by the demon-possessed vagina monitors, the sex offenders who are very much obsessed with me. They're engaging in what is gang stalking at Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue, the venue where the fake sun is documented literally from sunrise. Corey Walton, Jay Sandoval, 6:33 a.m. until sunset through the drive-through window, an impossible occurrence after 7 p.m. That's where the entity is conspicuously stalking, and it is conspicuous stalking based on the maintenance of a specific environment. And just because you are not one that is going to naturally observe that or witness that doesn't make it any less threatening or psychologically harmful or threatening under the circumstances, not only based on the specific environment as you're analyzing the stalker, which is also maliciously targeting you in an environment that nobody else is aware of and where you don't have evidence, and that's supposed to falsely depict you if you just scream out something like, it's a fake sun and they're stalking me. The entity's engaging in that pattern of conduct, which is designed to falsely depict the character of that targeted individual, which is where the P.O.C. comes in. You are looking at that supernatural feature regarding that pattern of conduct, where the sun is, like I told you to observe, at the Economy Inn, where the entity is gang stalking me by the Ontario International Airport in that parking lot, as I documented. And they're engaging in, I documented that on the morning of what is December 30th, 2025, by the way. And the entity is keeping the fake sun, as I documented yesterday morning at 9:35 a.m. upon my exit, and where the entity is stalking by plane. So the entity is stalking by plane and is engaging in what is concealing itself through what is the coverage. It's a subdued fake sun, so it's nonetheless a fake sun. Okay, the entity is engaging in what is the maintenance of that environment. That lets you know everybody around is engaging in surveillance. You are under surveillance in that environment, which is not natural. Relevant context is that the day prior, on January 1st, 2026, the fake sun is in that same exact position, catty corner to that hotel room, with engineer light streaming underneath a covered structure, impossible light activity,
simultaneously present with that fake sun object, which is, again, so low that it's also creating impossible light activity that would stretch like a laser into the depths of that hotel room. As I opened the front door, I showed you the ceiling and I showed you the floor. That's where the fake sun is there at 4:11 p.m. That's, first of all, impossible with regard to duration of time analysis. The sun that is there at 4:11 p.m. in any sort of sky space, in any place where you would observe it, is not also going to be there at 9:35 a.m. And the natural environment dictates that if it was there and you see it and you witness it at 4:11 p.m., then it's going to be there in a substantially similar manner the next day at 4:11 p.m. The entity has the fake sun over me at 9:35 a.m. and the natural environment never includes a sun being present for 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. That will be 7 hours of it remaining stationary in the same position, merely a change in color. That's the environment that you are paying attention to, where the entity is indeed engaging in conspicuous stalking and monitoring with demons such as the people of the state. 9AYE394, stalking where I am at ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, and you'll see the image of the fake sun over me where the Ontario International Airport is stalking. That fake sun in a totally different location now, and who is present in that environment? The entity that maintains no takeoffs from Terminal 2 or 4, nor would there be any planes from those terminals hovering and maintaining any audible activity, and it's also relevant that that's not even possibly the sun. Okay, the entity is engaging in that conduct while the Ontario police are stalking at the very heavily documented crime scene. It's not only incriminating that the Ontario police are there, it's incriminating that they're there at a heavily documented venue and a heavily documented area. The fake sun over me at Chevron, the fake moon over me last night at Chevron, where the Ontario police are stalking now, stalking me by helicopter, and then engaging in what is criminal summoning, talking about the demon-possessed gang stalkers. The people of the state are the ones that told them that there's a noise complaint. They're not engaging in what is any noise complaint regarding the clear, flagrant zoning violations of the airport hovering over that senior citizen complex, over the city hall, over the College of Laverne University of Law, University of Laverne College of Law. It's a very forgettable and corrupt institution. I'm going to prosecute them. That's why I don't get the name right. And the entity doing so over the Ontario Senior Center, where they are hovering, and that's proven through video evidence. And it's also relevant to what is clear regarding what is going to be a uniform takeoff that pilots perform from airports that is not going to include any of this plane activity that I'm documenting, and it's never occurring in any natural environment where a sun would be over any location, like I've documented at Starbucks, like I've documented at Economy Inn, and yesterday is where the fake sun is at 9:35 a.m. The entity has the fake sun over me as I'm documenting 9:31 a.m. Rapidly, a few minutes later, it's in the same environment, but I capture a picture of it, and you're looking at what is this equally fake, subdued fake sun that's remaining in the same location, and that is speaking to what the entity is doing yesterday where I'm at stalking, and what the entity is doing right now where I'm at, and in a distinct location where the sun's not over that mobile, over that Economy Inn parking lot, where that airport is stalking as well, keeping me under surveillance, and the entity is doing so in relevant position at that Starbucks at 507 North Euclid Avenue. This is the entity that's doing so. That's conspicuous stalking, as you're identifying it in the specific environment, and that is within nobody's imagination, and it's also very clear cut. The fact that the entity is being exposed while you are being educated is no less damning and no less indicting, and you're going to be prosecuted with regard to what is a satanic pattern of conduct. That's getting to the mental illness of those that are masquerading as police officers, engaging in malicious means of targeting, like S. Cassis, R. Lilly, this so-called Sergeant Hall, okay? Those are demons. All of them. That was a gang of demons. They were engaged in gang violence under a fake moon, by the way. That fake moon that left remaining over the OVITT Family Community Library, and it's over me where that same department is stalking by helicopter at this Chevron, which is across the street from this Starbucks, where the entity has a fake sun in a manner that is irreconcilable with what is over the Economy Inn at 2301 South Euclid Avenue from 9:35 a.m., which would be necessarily until 4:11 p.m. because you're not looking at the sunset at that hotel while it's in Los Angeles. And it's creating sunlight inside of the hotel room that I'm in. And that it's even going to be visible with regard to what is a gaseous ball of fire in constant movement, and also having a sunset in Florida that's 3 hours ahead of us. That's not the case, and you're documenting that environment where the entity is stalking and posing a threat. The entity is doing so while I am uploading evidence onto the venue of the internet regarding what is the fake sun that's over me, and the entity is doing so, I just want to be clear, the entity is acting via the Ontario police, who are conspicuously stalking. The Ontario police are engaged in criminal surveillance. They are ceaselessly stalking. They are doing so vicariously, such as with the demons that are operating the dumpster trucks, the City of Ontario, the municipality, that are demons engaging in criminal surveillance. Using dumpster trucks, as pathetic as that is, that's your career, and you're not even doing that. you're gang stalking somebody while you are engaged in what is that line of business. But that's what the demons in the city of Ontario are engaging in. The dumpster trucks are amplified in volume. The dumpster trucks are stalking. They're all around like cockroaches. They're engaged in the use of such dumpster trucks with the means of stalking with audible activity, which is terrorism and ongoing psychological torture, while the entity is stalking with the method of light activity, which is also provided by those trucks. That's where the entity is engaged in what is stalking in concert. Criminal activity are what the Ontario police are sharing in with the people of the state, and they also share in mental illness. The entity is doing this under the fake sun that's remaining over the ARCO parking lot, the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. It is, by the way, on the north side of the same apartment complex that it is in the evening after 4 p.m. on the south side of that apartment complex. This is what I'm reminding you about when I captured video at around the same time, 4:10 p.m. I believe, outside of the door of my hotel room at the Ontario Airport Inn, and I showed you what is not the sun, which is the identification of a crime scene again, where that same Ontario police are stalking me by helicopter at that hotel room at 245, room 245, and the entity's, while my room is facing west, and that fake sun is over me at 12:20 p.m., 12:24 p.m., and who's on video? Conspicuously stalking, as you recognize an impossibility regarding the environment that is very real. As I capture that illusion, it's the Ontario Police Department. The Ontario Police Department that are engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder, and also engaging in what are exposed as kidnappings upon not only malicious assertions, meaning things that I did not do, crimes that I did not commit. They are engaged in trespassing. Again, that's not a crime when the entity is engaged in surveillance like the Ontario Police and Starbucks, and they're engaged in obstruction of justice. So you're getting beyond all those illusions. And the evidence prosecuting surrounding Starbucks is why Ocean and all the rest of those puppets that are gang stalking under her corrupt leadership, which is a corrupt company as well, they're going to federal prison. And they're gang stalking right now while the Ontario Police, while you can see that vehicle, while you see the fake sun, while the airport is stalking, while the people of the state are pacing all around, monitoring together in furtherance of murder, engaging in that communication of an unlawful threat, an impermissible threat. While they're doing so, as the evidence is being uploaded on the internet, which is not a coincidence, as I publish the evidence, the entity is stalking by helicopter. As I publish evidence, the entity is engaging in criminal summoning for no reason, such as, oh, we just saw somebody, and for what they believe is a reason, and it's not. It's still no reason. The reason is that I'm documenting you, and the entity's tactic is to threaten, harass, kidnap, psychologically torture, and sexually violate as you are engaging in what is documentation, reporting the stalker, obstructing justice. That's the entity's doing this under the fake sun that's not at the same time over the economy in. And it would never be over this ARCO parking lot. This is where the Ontario police are engaging conspicuous stalking. And what I also want you to know is because, again, somebody that is seeking to, and that's fine, we can entertain all of the entities' means of what is using innuendos, using implied statements that they don't overtly state. And even in court, they would say, you would state or concede, oh, well, if we're gang stalking, then we could have kidnapped her again. If you want to claim it's kidnapping, we could have harassed her again. We could have approached her at the bus stop last night, and they did not do that. They were stalking me on my way to the bus stop by helicopter. The entity that's engaging in that is stalking by helicopter right now. By the way, the entity that's engaging in that is doing so because they are fearful of what it is that I'm exposing about them. The Ontario Police, CEASELESS, they're going to prison. I just want to document that. This is the fake sun that, remember, is over me. Hold on. At what is the current time is, this is perfect because I'm aboard Omnitrans yesterday while the entity has kept the fake sun where the Ontario police are stalking conspicuously at the Starbucks. And remember, as I board the Omnitrans, and I'm doing so at approximately 9:54 a.m., that fake sun that's over me at U.S. Fuels at 2155 South Euclid Avenue is not, as I'm documenting, remaining stationary over this ARCO. It's impossible for it to be in the window of the bus that is traveling north up Euclid Avenue, and I arrive and capture it remaining over me as I get off the bus. Contrary to what it's doing now, when I don't move, that fake sun doesn't move. That's exactly what I'm capturing at Economy Inn, where the entity's keeping that fake sun as a matter of duration of time, what would necessarily be 9:35 a.m. until 4:11 p.m., because that's what I captured on the evening of what is January 1st, 2026. The entity's stalking by helicopter right now pursuant to a documented pattern. As I speak to what I'm going to continuously speak to, the entity that's conspicuously stalking, such as the facilitating video of Starbucks, sunrise till sunset, fake sun, targeting by that Ontario Police Department, including while I'm inside and they're flying in circles over that cafe, including while I capture and refer to, document, publish damning evidence. And all of my evidence under the fake sun is damning. All of my commentary is damning. Okay? The entity's engaging in this, and I just want to be clear, it is 10 a.m. and so you're mindful of what the entity is doing with the fake sun when I'm aboard Route 83 at 2155 South Euclid Avenue, where that fake sun moves as I move on the bus, north up Euclid Avenue at the same speed, and doing so street for street. And then it ceases to move with the bus as I get off of that bus, as I get off of Omnitrans that has no natural environment remaining over me. Omnitrans is a crime scene where I'm under surveillance on the roads and the highways in violation of Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2. What so-called Sergeant Hall, who is engaged in what is vagina monitoring. She's a gang stalker. She's engaged in what is threatening to commit kidnapping. She knows nothing about that statute, and she engages in what is harassing me while she is stalking wearing a police uniform. Just like the demons over here, conspicuously stalking using both helicopter and doing so while you're conspicuously stalking as the department, monitoring with the people of the state under the fake sun, which, by the way, is also not over the OVITT Family Community Library. It will be as I travel there on foot. All right, this is P.O.C. All right, I'm capturing video of the entity that is stalking by helicopter. What is it that you're picking up from that? That's the entity that's doing so last night while I'm publishing evidence about what's happening to gang stalking police officers, which is federal prison. They're going to federal prison while they're stalking and furtherance of murder and engaging in what is the exercise of fictitious authority while they're engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring in violation of Title 18, doing so maliciously in concert with the people of the state. They are literally engaging in criminal activity with the population while they're wearing police uniforms to get away with it and control a narrative before an American citizen who is being gang stalked by the police, reasonably resulting in what is a loss of life, okay, and loss of liberty. They're doing so while they are monitoring my evidence, and that's what's relevant regarding criminal summoning last night and also stalking by helicopter as I am in use of my devices and publishing the evidence. The entity is engaging in what is ongoing harassment while I'm documenting the pattern of conduct last night here at ARCO as well, while I'm documenting the sex offender at ARCO in the white BMW whose license plate I recited. As I cross the street, the entity engages in what is terrorizing me as I describe what are serial killers, and the entity that engages in ongoing documented acts of so-called retaliation. It's not retaliation. It's called foolish criminal conduct that's directly incriminating everybody. The people of the state are going to prison for stalking with the police. That's where they're going. They're going to prison for criminally summoning the police. They're going to federal prison for cooperating in this criminal pattern of conduct on a serial basis, like I document the people of the state. Now, what the entity is doing and what the entity is triggered by, seeking to literally engage in criminal activity to avert me speaking to that which I'm going to speak to now. That's the entity that's acting with impunity. That's the entity, by the way, that's just diving into, doing a backstroke into federal prison. That's the entity with that's their strategy, which is not a strategy. Their tactic is to engage in more gang stalking, terrorism, psychological torture, and harassment while you document. And this is what it is that I'm going to speak to. The entity that's conspicuously stalking, license plate, LKRS44. That's the people of the state stalking under the fake sun. They're doing so while the entity is stalking as a police department, and you would concede in court. These demons would not successfully and not genuinely, okay? You are not under any circumstances seriously contending, but I will go ahead and concede the argument. The entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct, and they're doing so with regard to what is malice, okay? So this is, again, a stalker that's dressing up as a police officer, a police department, engaging what is ostensibly the operations of a police department, when actually they're engaged in what is criminal surveillance. They're engaged in what is a corrupt operation and organized crime, and they're doing so in concert with the people of the state, and it's an unprecedented basis of public corruption. That entity that's engaging in that criminal conduct is very much engaged in what is the illusion. Okay? They're the ones that are asking you for your identification when they know exactly who you are. Those are the ones that are engaging in what is asking you your name, asking you, do you know what happened? Are you the one? Are you this person? Well, we got some information, when they know exactly who you are. They know exactly what you've done. They know exactly what you have not done. And they know with regard to the truthfulness, the veracity of that which they claim they were reported, they claim was reported to them concerning you, which is the basis whereby they're in your presence, i.e. conspicuously stalking you. That entity, don't forget about that illusion, because they're all doing it under what is a fake sun that they're also present under, engaging in the same pattern of conduct while they're maintaining that illusion of privacy, while they're maintaining that illusion of the absence of any surveillance, in other words. That's the entity that would contend in court. That's the entity that will not successfully contend in court. That's the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking and furtherance of murder in a necessarily malicious manner, and is also, again, very absent-minded, also very ill-equipped with regard to what is evidence that's surrounding them and their malicious and psychopathic pattern of conduct. The entity that's gang stalking does not have a defense with regard regard to, oh, you're not targeting because last night they could have harassed me like Hazelwood did and kidnapped me from the bus stop. Okay, first of all, they already did. They accomplished it by stalking by helicopter at the town square and while I'm walking toward that bus stop. Where they are stalking, to engage in kidnapping or to not engage in kidnapping is not to suggest that you are not gang stalking. Kidnapping is the act of taking my person without consent and without authority under the law from one place to another while you are engaged in stalking me as a corrupt police department. It's not a false arrest. It's not tortious. It's not a false arrest. It's a kidnapping while they're conspiring murder. That's the entity that would contend, oh, well, if we're targeting so bad, then why didn't we, and you could state, we can entertain that. Why didn't they harass last night? Why didn't they molest me with impossible light last night? Why didn't they go ahead and kidnap me again like Hazelwood, badge number 21167 in Owens? They're going to federal prison. Why didn't they do that? First of all, they're engaged in monitoring the entire time. The people of the state that are stalking in concert with the Ontario International Airport are gang stalking with the Ontario Police, who remain engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. And second of all, the entity that commits the act of kidnapping is doing so with regard to what is the pattern of conduct where they are taking you and taking your liberty. That's the entity that's being disbanded for that. That is not suggesting under any circumstances where the fake moon, where the fake sun is over me on this street, where I'm publishing the evidence of the fake sun being in the same position on Euclid Avenue, where it is on November 25th at 1:11, 1:13 in the afternoon. The entity is gang stalking and monitoring. The entity is engaged in surveillance on the internet, and the entity is doing so while I'm publishing the evidence in a conspicuous manner. License 9 Nancy Victor Sam 886, stalking with the Ontario Police Department. They're engaging in that pattern of conduct, and I just want to be clear, the entity that is engaging in kidnapping on December 19th, 2025 is still engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring whether or not they committed kidnapping last night. They're stalking right now by helicopter under a fake sun. That is not possibly remaining over Economy N nor through the bus window of Omnitrans that's driving northbound on Euclid Avenue. That's the entity that's engaging in that specific environment. And by the way, under the fake moon last night, the fake sun over me and the fake moon at nightfall, where this entity is engaging in that P.O.C. They did engage in what is harassment. They are engaging in what is a threat to commit kidnapping, like S. Casas, R. Lilly, and Sergeant Hall and the other Latino male officer are committing at the OVITT Family Community Library, where the entity is stalking by plane and helicopter, doing so while that entity is maintaining ongoing surveillance of my evidence, and the entity that's being prosecuted online engages in more of that criminal activity while it's being published on the internet, which is also, again, ongoing, corroborating, incriminating activity, incriminating conduct, criminal acts that you are committing while you're sitting up watching an American citizen prosecute you. And you know why? Because they can't sit still and just not do anything. But the entity is very much, like I said, psychopathic and maniacal and they're also unintelligent. And that's a horrible, horrible combination when you would like to contend that you are the government that is appropriately dressed with what is the trustworthiness of being in a position of authority, whose word is trustworthy and whose exercise of authority is within the confines of the law. Somebody that is noble, somebody that is honorable, or an entity, a department that is honorable, and the entity has been stripped of that. All they're doing is engaging in what is bullying, as I documented, and they're literally relying on their position which they've been relegated to what is appearing as and being what is nothing other than feces consumers. Demon-possessed people who are stalking in helicopters, stalking in police vehicles, doing so as they are performing and behaving like cockroaches and maggots, and the entities engaging in that pattern of conduct, and it is ignoble. It is the antithetical to what the entity is supposed to be representing and what they're supposed to be doing, and the entity engages in more targeting and harassment while I document and publish it for you to witness. They have no legitimacy in a courtroom. They don't have legitimacy on the internet. The entities engaging in that pattern of conduct of stalking by helicopter, there's no coincidences here. The fake sun's remaining over me on a bus, and I'm not even here yet. The fake sun is then remaining over me as I am going to the Ontario OVITT Family Community Library. It's past 10 o'clock. It's 10:09 a.m. The entity is keeping that fake sun over me while a demon of that department is representing what that entire department is obsessed with, contrary to what the audible activity of this demon-possessed psychopath, Sergeant Hall, is communicating while she's monitoring, wearing a police uniform, which is mandating federal prison because of the threat that she poses to my life. Merely being in my presence and conspiring my murder like any other criminal wearing a gun, threatening me while you're stalking me and you're bearing weapons. It's a stark contrast with regard to the entity that wants to represent itself, wants to cloak itself in the honor of being law enforcement officers who are actually engaged in the execution of their duty, which is protected under the law and provides them due process rights upon a prosecution. Under the fake sun and the fake moon and the engineer light, with a pattern of stalking and harassment and kidnapping, targeting, just making up information, including what is harassing me and stating that it's my volume as to why you're in my presence stalking me, you don't have any due process rights. The pattern of conduct is stripping terrorists that are masquerading as law enforcement officers and departments from any due process rights. I will prosecute you while you are standing there indecently exposed, because that's exactly how you are in court. You have absolutely no protection, and I'm going to prosecute you like the terrorist that you are. You are not going to experience the protections of having a series of administrative and bureaucratic ways of avoiding. No, none of that's happening. I just want to let you know. You're not operating within the confines of what law enforcement dictates. You're engaged in what is a very documented pattern of conduct, because we're not going to go back and forth. There's no controversy. There's no debate. It's not about I said this and I remember that and I think this, and even though I can clearly recall, it's even better than that. The whole world is watching like a movie while a police department is stalking and being prosecuted. And what are they doing in response to their exposure? They're engaging in more criminal monitoring in concert with the people of the state who are going to prison right along with them. And they're being diagnosed for mental illness right along with them. License plate 7PSW781. That's a white male, bald, gang stalking at the Ontario Veterinary Hospital. Doing so, crossing path, they're stalking at the Chevron, pacing with the Ontario Police. 6YPB434. These are demons that are coming in close proximity, fake sun, crossing path, while the Ontario Police are conspicuously stalking. So the entities engage in that, and that's what I want to make sure that I refer and remind you about. This is the entity that asks for your identification when they know who you are. That's maintaining an illusion of privacy. That's maintaining demons, witches, that are dressing up as police officers who are engaged in surveillance, not law enforcement, who are violating your constitutional rights. They are cloaking themselves as those that are protecting and serving. But you're showing, all I do is put a magnifying glass on it. They're not cloaking themselves very persuasively at all. When you pay attention, you can clearly see, because I don't have to tell you what to think. I don't have to tell you what it is that you should conclude from this, because you can clearly see in that environment, which you can also clearly see that nobody's imagining anything. First of all, that's the entity that relies on criminal defamation. Second of all, you can clearly see what it's targeting on its face, and then you're recognizing the P.O.C. targeting in substance. The entities engage in this with a pattern of conduct that's shared by demons that are far away from Ontario. The fake sun that's over my apartment at Alvarado Gardens, that's putting these demons that are stalking me in helicopters and conspicuously stalking at Starbucks, they're going to prison. No sun is going to remain for a duration of time, daylight savings time or not, from 6:33 a.m. until after 7 p.m. That's where the entity is conspicuously stalking, and doing so with an eye shot as I publish evidence that's prosecuting them. And I'm also publishing the evidence where they are threatening me, and I'm going to prosecute them. Because this is relevant to what the ordinary target individual is subject to. The ordinary target individual who starts experiencing heart palpitations, who starts feeling like they're going to puke because they're being targeted everywhere that they're going. The police are there, and they are frazzled by that, not because they're criminals and not because they're paranoid. It's because you do have instincts as human beings that something is awry. Something is wrong, whether or not you have proof of it. And the unintelligent, perhaps less sophisticated American citizen that is very much not imagining things makes allegations even though they don't have the evidence to prove it. That is not mental illness. That is a legally insufficient case against the state that is very much engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. But you have to have evidence to prove it. That's what the P.O.C. is. And the P.O.C. is evidence that anybody in the United States can refer to, by the way. It is establishing precedent. And it's also relevant regarding what is diagnosing mental illness by the very entity itself that's gang stalking. They're mentally ill, including while they're monitoring the evidence and they're still engaging in targeting and the whole world is witnessing it. That's delusional, absurdly demented, including the ways in which they're stalking as a population, stalking with light, stalking with noise. These are not people, these are animals. These are demon-possessed folks. They behave like animals, and they want to have custody of children. They want to be treated like sane, law-abiding citizens when they're not. They're barbarians and Neanderthals. They're engaged in lawlessness, and they want to be treated and regarded as those that have the same position under the law, and you don't. You're serial killers, and you're pedophiles. You are psychopaths who are stalking on a 24-hour basis as a whole society under an entire fake sun. Yes, you eat feces on saucers and everyone is looking at you do it. No one is mistaken. And that's not me exaggerating what you look like. That's exactly what you look like, and that's exactly what you are. The entities engaging in conspicuous stalking, I just want to make sure that you understand. The entity that you heard and that you will see stalking by helicopter, that is stalking as it is established under the law. Criminal surveillance, okay? First of all, the entity is maintaining surveillance in the United States, and that's criminal. First of all, the Ontario police are on the wrong side of the law. Second of all, the fact that they didn't commit a kidnapping again last night is not evidence that they're not engaged in the P.O.C. Don't forget about the illusion. The illusion of, first of all, a whole natural environment. The illusion regarding privacy under the state and federal constitutions. Asking you what's your name. Asking you, let me see your identification card to verify who you are. And they know exactly who you are. That's the psychopath that stalks you in helicopter and thinks that you're going to be falsely depicted at the outset as being mentally ill because you don't have the evidence to prove that they're engaged in surveillance, targeting you, which, by the way, you do prove with evidence. You don't just prove anything. You can't prosecute with a gumption. You can't prosecute with an impulse. You can't even prosecute with regard to discernment. You have to have tangible evidence, and praise God for that. That's a system that is appropriate because you do not want to entertain witch hunts. That would be dangerous for everyone. But this is an entity that is exploiting the system. And they're doing so while this whole illusion is prevalent and is present. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. The entity that would like to contend that, you're going to, it's unsuccessful. You're stalking under all circumstances. And the fact that you're stalking and also trying to double as a police, you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. That's the formula for murdering people. 6YOX827. This is P.O.C. It's currently 10 a.m. The entity is engaging in surveillance at ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue. The entity is stalking with Starbucks. I'm at the intersection of E and Euclid, where the entity is engaging in what is keeping the sun, as I've documented, from morning until evening, and I'm documenting the entity keeping a fake sun in entirely distinct locations, such as what is Economy and at the 60 freeway. Okay? So what's at the OVITT Family Community Library at 410, 411, approximately the same time, is not outside of that hotel room, causing any sunlight into that hotel room, contrary to what I documented on the evening of January 1st, 2026. That's an impossible occurrence, but I captured the impossibility so that you are aware of what is malice under the law. And it's also not a coincidence, while I speak to these very damning things, which I'm always going to speak to, the intellectually impotent are the ones that keep stalking, keep giving me evidence, and it's not slowing down the case. It's not slowing down the date that they're getting locked up also. It's not slowing that down either. It's not magic. You're not stealing any spiritual energy. You're not engaging in magic. You're mental. You are imagining that you're headed towards some place that you ain't going. You're only going to prison. I told you where you're going. You're going to prison. This is establishing precedent regarding the United States of America, who targets American citizens just like this. I've given you the blueprint. This is how they do it. All right, and they're going to prison for it, and it's relevant for what is prison for Tracy Banks. Let me be clear. She's at home engaging in what is sex magic. She's engaged in hoodoo voodoo. She's got all kinds of dolls. She's a psychopath, sitting around worshiping pubic hair that she stole from the bathroom after I used it, sucking on tampons that I used while she's engaged in what is gang stalking with this entity, and she's going into a mental ward. She's a psychopath. And she's delusional, while these demons out here are prosecuting her for me. This is the pattern of conduct. It is currently 10:18 a.m. on what is January 3rd, 2020. These are the stalkers that are flying on what is the north side of the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. There are no takeoffs from Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 over the City Hall and over the 280 North Limit apartments, nor are there any when you're engaging in what is cartwheels, stalking in the path. Stalking me as an airport is relevant to mental illness and public corruption. The population that is also stalking, that's not the actual sound of Union Pacific on the railroad tracks. This is demonic, and so is stalking in airplanes and helicopters. This is where the entity is engaging in that, and they're doing with a notable level of delusion. The entity is going to be diagnosed not only for stalking in these incredible manners, which are proven with tangible evidence, but still doing so, it's relevant that I'm documenting, and the entity engaged in this ongoing pattern of conduct with the level of impunity that is unlawful as well. This is the ARCO parking lot. This is the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. This is criminal surveillance. Stalking in the path where the entity is stalking me by planes. The entity maintains presence in the path with regard to what is stalking together as an entity, and you're a psychopath while you're stalking somebody looking to the left and the right, yawning like you're bored. All right, that's the entity in that P.O.C. This is the entity that's doing so while the Ontario police are conspicuously stalking at the Starbucks across the street in an environment where I've documented the fake sun from morning until sunset. 7 VVP 628, and I documented this terrorist before. You want to pay attention to the screen? You can see the fake sun, the subdued fake sun right here over me, where a demon is not bored, a demon is stalking. With, by the way, the airport stalking, which is already established, is evidence that you're not doing anything other than stalking. This is P.O.C. The entity maintaining plane activity on the opposite side of this apartment building all night while I'm on the opposite side. And this is where the entity is keeping a fake sun moving as I move. This is psychopathic pacing. These are the mentally ill that are indeed going to be placed in federal prison. Every gang stalking airline, okay, every single last one, because they're all engaged in that pattern of conduct, and that's the terrorist Southwest Airlines. That's the fake sun engaging in this pattern of conduct while they are keeping the fake. By the way, setting at this same location after 6 p.m., Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, 2500 South Archibald Avenue, stalking in close proximity where I'm walking, where I'm traveling, doing so maintaining surveillance in the sky space, doing cartwheels over the apartment building, and then engaging what is pacing over that same apartment. This is the entity that is stalking. This is the entity that's highly unintelligent. This is the entity that is severely mentally ill. Okay, so you're talking about shutting down the Ontario International Airport, but what you are mindful of is the fact that Southwest Airlines, UPS, well, I don't believe that they maintain passengers, but they are still more or less a terrorist. You're looking at the damage that they did in Kentucky. That was murder using a commercial plane. They're engaged in documented criminal surveillance. That was not an accident in Kentucky. You're looking at the environment. That was a fake sunset where they're engaged in targeting, and they're sharing that with every airline: American Airlines, Delta Airlines, United Airlines. The entity's engaging in what is criminal monitoring with every single airline that is engaging in this pattern of conduct throughout the U.S., and I'm documenting it in Ontario, California. There are no takeoffs over here. They're clearly stalking. This is P.O.C. That's UNICARE Community Health Center. That's psychopathic pacing by a population of demons, and they're stalking with impossible light on this building. Those are co-conspirators of murder, which is why the airport is being shut down. And gang stalking pilots who are not mysterious are going to federal prison and mental asylums. The people of the state are going to federal prison for criminal summoning with this entity acting in furtherance of murder and kidnapping, while they're engaging in the pattern of conduct on the roads and the highways, and doing so with regard to what is stalking in planes, okay? Doing so while the entity is maintaining that specific environment, and these are all demons. The state's controlling the lights, and they're engaged in psychopathic pacing and engineer light on the roads and the highways. EH15 Charlie 61, this is P.O.C. That's an airport that's engaged in psychological torture while the population is stalking you in that manner. And they're all doing it while they're watching the evidence on the internet. That's also inspiring the criminal conduct that they commit against me and harassing me and kidnapping me while they are hostile to the documentation that I put up about them doing it. It's currently 6:19 p.m. P.O.C. Sexual battery, license 5 Nancy 27295. And 6WXE364 shares in sexual assault and battery. They're pacing together. These demons are surrounding as I seek to avert one sex offender. Another is surrounding to make sure that they're molesting. Remember, they're touching my breasts, my stomach, my buttocks, my thighs, my groin area with engineer light while they're stalking in furtherance of murder. This is sexual violence that the government's going to be prosecuted for. While the airport is stalking, license plate 9JVC807, and a female is in the vehicle with that Latino male. License plate 7FXE084, and the Stater Brothers Ontario Village Shopping Center is engaging in sexual assault and battery as an entity. DE15 Charlie 03, that's an out-of-state plate. License plate 8 Mary 0 Wendy 535. The out-of-state plate, oh no, that's a paper plate. Edward Charlie 83M66. P.O.C. I'm standing in front of Dee Dee's that's engaging in sexual assault and battery and furtherance of murder. P.O.C. Two 7818 Larry 3 5TQJ 433 9P Victor Sam 19190 8 Robert Indiana David 238. Remember, everybody inside of every store, every employee, every service provider, somebody filling up the vending machines, they're all gang stalking. And the entity that's already established, and that they're stalking by planes and helicopters, they'd like to make that so abundantly clear. They're stalking while sex offenders are molesting. 9DFK485, license 8TZN871, License 9TTH387. The smoke shop owner, manager, and longtime employee. License 7 Edward, Indiana, Uncle 727. The red Honda Civic. At the 628E Holt Boulevard. 9PKY761. License plate 9DXH607. This is the mentally ill population, by the way, who are engaged in what is stalking with light. That's certifiable conduct. That's psychotic. And the fact that you're stalking as well, and they're all doing it together. And they're doing it obsessively. And they're making sure that they engage in what is surrounding so that you're never able to escape being touched with light while they're stalking. And these are demons that are lusting after murder. 7ZKS737. The mentally ill population is going to be prosecuted as the co-conspirators of murder that they are, as the violent sex offenders. The mentally ill population of serial killers that they are. License ZEEJEFE. And, by the way, Jason Isaac Fields is going to prison. This is his pattern of conduct. This is criminal conduct that he's sharing in while he's been profiting, and I've been gang stalked, while he's been spending and stealing from me, and I've been homeless, being gang stalked, being kidnapped. He's going to prison. 9PAE935, 9ETH374, and so is Tracy Banks, P.O.C. It's 6:43 p.m. I'm on surveillance cameras being gang stalked in the grocery store at Stater Brothers at 646 West Holt. There's a bunch of demons that are stalking. P.O.C. Assault and battery, 507 Vesta Street, Ontario, California, 9UXZ400. The entity engaging in sexual assault and battery as a neighborhood. Demons that are stalking and molesting, as sex offenders do, who are stalking where they live. I just want to make sure that that's clear. The entity is stalking while they are agents of the state, engaging in what is the criminal bidding, the gang stalking on behalf of that government that flies over and stalks me with a fake sun and a fake moon and with amplified noise, and also stalks me with light through the demons who are the people of the state. Okay, that's P.O.C. Again, this is at Vesta, so that's 507 West Vesta Street, third-party facilitating venue, engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring, molesting my body, stalking me in furtherance of murder at that venue. This is P.O.C. It's currently, by the way, while 507 West Vesta is gang stalking me in furtherance of murder, they are doing so with third-party. License 8, Sam Larry Xavier 568, and doing so with the whole neighborhood, this whole intersection, which is where I'm at. But those sex offenders are acting as on behalf of that entity, maintaining, again, providing that light so that all the demons can pace around while they're touching on my body. All right, this is sexual violence that Jason Fields is engaging in while he planned to engage in that pattern of conduct. License 6ZAF438. That's the entity that's stalking 507 West Vesta. P.O.C. I want you to hear the plane activity. That's the entity that's blatantly stalking, and that's the clear prosecution of the people of the state. 6GFT842. Yeah, there's no planes taking off east of this location at the Ontario Town Square and the 280 North Limit Apartments, where the elderly people have commercial planes hovering over their apartment buildings and doing cartwheels over their apartments while that airport is stalking me. And there's also no takeoff west of that location, where they would have already risen in elevation if they were engaging in taking off and maintaining legitimate operations in the first place, but they're not. That's why they're west of that location, where I'm being molested with engineered light by demons who know exactly who I am and are conspiring murder while they are gang stalking with that government, utilizing commercial airlines of the Ontario International Airport, each of which are going to be prosecuted for conspiring my murder and doing so with impunity. With the demons that are stalking with light, they're monitoring me, conspiring murder with that government that provides evidence against them. They provide evidence against each other. License plate 9TYM964, sexual assault and battery as an entity. This is P.O.C. This is at the intersection of Vesta and Vine, where the government is engaging in what is stalking as an airport. That's the entity that's also stalking as that police department. That's the entity that's engaging in what is stalking while you commit what is a kidnapping upon facts of federal group stalking and monitoring. And they're doing so as demons engaging in certifiable conduct, such as stalking with light, and they're doing so without abandon, with a level of lawlessness and impunity that is also relevant. That's why you're hearing plane activity as I begin documenting. 224 Vine Avenue. That's the entity that's engaging in sexual assault and battery and stalking with the Ontario International Airport, where you live, and it's a means of documenting terrorists who are going to be federally prosecuted for sexual violence, criminal stalking, conspiracy to commit murder, while they're doing so with the government. P.O.C. that's flying over, stalking me through the neighborhood. It is, by the way, 7:33 p.m. P.O.C. Let me give you this license plate. 8 Sam Uncle Frank 093. License plate 16771 Victor 3, stalking with the airport that just engaged in hovering over their home, over their street, over me, stalking me, and so are they. Reading that license plate at 226 Vine Avenue, license TLJ 9695, that's a Texas plate, stalking with the government in furtherance of murder, stalking as a neighborhood, engaging in gang stalking, engaging in criminal activity where you reside, where there is no shelter and there's no constitutional protection. And it's also not private property, by the way, but I'm going to prosecute the entity for gang stalking where they live. License 40941G1. This is the intersection of Vesta and Vine, where the demons are pacing along the street, stalking, maintaining impossible light activity. They're stalking. And how is that confirmed? Oh, the Ontario International Airport just provided confirmation. Not that you need it, but that's the entity that's engaging in corroborating criminal conduct. 7ZNH854, sexual assault and battery. And doing so with what is 427 C Street. And that's the entity that's stalking by helicopter. If you recall my documentation, when I am walking through the neighborhood and who is flying over my head, chasing me through the neighborhood? The Ontario Police Department by helicopter. And then you have so-called Sergeant Hall. She's not keeping that position. Sergeant Hall is going to be identified as a sex offender appropriately, as a stalker and a co-conspirator of murder, trying to cloak herself as a demon, as a law enforcement, so that she can get away with criminal activity. And this is relevant to the criminal conduct of that Ontario Police Department that is on the record stalking me through this very exact same neighborhood, this intersection, following me literally from the grocery store to this intersection as I walk down G Street, and that entity was stalking the entire time on my podcast. That's the entity that's committing kidnapping and then calling it an arrest under the municipal code. That's the entity that's engaged in criminal summoning and stating that it's a noise disturbance. Those are the demons that are gang stalking, the ones whom that gang stalking police department rely on when they're engaged in terrorizing and harassing together. 9BQM 904. See, that's why you're recalling all the facts, and that's why you're also going to analyze the substance of what those co-conspirators of murder dressed in Ontario police uniforms are stating, because they're going to be prosecuted. And they're also subject to what is mental illness, as they are being diagnosed based on the malice that's exhibited in their audible activity when they're stalking. They're engaged in gang stalking. 9EHH373. And Jason Isaac Fields is going to federal prison for everything that I have proven I've been subject to, while this demon and his 60-plus-year-old sex partner, who together conspired my murder and thought that these two numbskulls were going to get away with stealing my money and my identity, and that gang stalking was going to do away with me. Okay? These demons, like I said, they could not effectively defame a dirty toilet. Okay? That's how low they are, literally. And these two idiots, literally, these are ignoramuses, highly ignorant people who are engaging what is infecting other people with their genitalia, and are drug addicts, and they sell transactions with their genitalia, their infected genitalia, had the audacity to try to plot against my life and try to falsely depict me as what they actually are engaging, and wants to steal my money and property and my name in doing so. They are going to prison. It's not just name calling. It's not just gossip. It's defamation upon conspiracy to murder, so that when they take my life as an entity, no one asks any questions, because based on the instability of my life, based on the gang stalking system, gang stalking police officers that want to defame you impliedly through their audible activity while they're stalking you, while they're seeking to establish a reputation, a criminal record, that's criminal defamation, while they're engaged in repeatedly kidnapping, while they're gang stalking you. This is the entity that's aiding in what is having a fake conservatorship and a fake marriage to me. This is something that is not going to be made right in the background. That's not going to be informally or unofficially taken off the record in order to negotiate in the background. None of that's happening. Fields is going to prison. And you're going to prison for terrorism that you committed, for terrorism that the Ontario Police, the City of Ontario, are still engaging in. By the way, when there was never any investigation of me because of the threat posed to my life as an American citizen, you're going to federal prison. License 6JIM 672. And these demons are sitting in their vehicles, engaging in surveillance, stalking, and they're doing so with clear disregard, as though nobody's going to prison, as though nobody has any records regarding what are consequences for people that are outside of that parking lot at the Stater Brothers. For as though there are no consequences for those that have engaged in the pattern of conduct with other law enforcement agencies in different cities and municipalities speaking to a pattern of conduct by the state, as though there's nothing that's going to happen. That type of impunity, that level of disregard, that's a threat to an American citizen's life. And because of that, the principle of the matter, you cannot apologize or undo it. Neither will you. Especially while you remain engaged in gang stalking. And you're psychotic to think that you're going to gang stalk and at the same time negotiate in the background regarding you avoiding prison. You're delusional as the feces consumers stalking me in commercial planes. You're going to prison. Those quote unquote wannabe masterminds, you're no masterminds. You're idiots, you're fools. And I'm exposing you with regard to the wicked that need to be known in this country, because there are more just like them. They're the demon possessed who consider themselves higher than they ought to. The P.O.C. shows them to be nothing other than feces consumers. They're idiots. They are idiots. They're nothing other than corrupt. That doesn't take brain power. It takes no brain power to be a bully. And you're also a coward because you bully those that you thought were not able to resist it. And who's scared now? Who's running now? Who's steady trying to, while you're still targeting, by the way, who's steady trying to figure out how you're going to get out of it, and you're not. You're not getting out of it, and you're not getting out of prison. 7GKU812. And the demons in the city of Ontario have confirmed federal prison for Jason Fields and Tracy Banks. This is P.O.C. License 9JBZ681, 9UST293. License 8WSB253. License 1DRAGNA. License 9MCP204. Stalking with the people of the state or outside of their homes. Gang stalking, those are facilitating venues. License, stalking with light. It's a federal offense regardless of where you're at. License 5HZB779. License 8ZAV858. License plate 8XDX370. License 7ZVM010. And they're monitoring in real time while I'm reading license plates. Yeah, the demons that are going outside of their homes, sitting in their vehicles, engaging in criminal surveillance. These demons are under the false impression and illusion, as ignorant as the fake sun, that you're going to engage in criminal surveillance, including where you live, and that you have protection under the law. And I'm going to snatch them up with the long arm of the federal law. I will prosecute you where you live. Conspiring my murder and gang stalking where you live or where you are an occupant. P.O.C. It's currently 7:43 p.m. License plate 5WMS938, sexual assault and battery. License plate 56998 Henry 4, sexual assault and battery. Frontiers Communications, right here at the intersection, I believe, of what is Laurel and D Street. Sexual assault and battery. License plate 29143 Henry 4, sexual assault and battery. License 9R Mary Henry 210, 5SKD 982, sexual assault and battery. FGJ2850, which is an Ohio license plate, sexual assault and battery, 8UTH 881. 6GQK703, sexual assault and battery. And the demons, like I stated, the engineer light is your witnessing demon possession. It's not the headlights. And as I show you a fake sun that's remaining over me, and it's supposed to be, with regard to what I proved is existing, is the circumstance, the set of events, The environment, that sun moves in real time to be over me at ARCO, and it's not over economy N, nor would it ever be at the same economy N, the same address, the same location on that property from 9:35 a.m. until 4:11 p.m. These are the demon possessed, and you're witnessing the evidence of their demon possessed. As I'm walking through this dark parking lot, and there's no vehicle, okay? There's no headlights on here. The entity is engaging what is stalking me with light. Light just ricocheting out of nowhere. These are demons, and I am under surveillance, and these are indeed demon-possessed people. I'm reading the license plates of those that are engaged in sexual assault and battery as an entity, while their demonic co-defendants are pacing all around on D Street, on what is Laurel, on Euclid Avenue. The entity is always maintaining aerial surveillance, just like you heard. This is an entity that is, in fact, demon-possessed. In case you have not understood, it's not just the evidence proving a pattern of conduct. It is the evidence proving demon possession. The light activity isn't the product of the sun, nor is it the product of headlights or spotlight or flashlight. You're looking at demon possession when Hazelwood has the spotlight on the vehicle, on the Ontario police vehicle. It's engineer light. It's not different from the light you see swimming along the wall. That demon's just dressed up in a uniform that you're supposed to be deceived by, distracted by even, oppressed by, okay? It's Satan. License 8GLV149, sexual assault and battery. The entity that is stalking with light is an entity that's engaging in domestic terrorism. And they do that to American citizens who suffer in secret, who don't know what engineered light, directed light, and possible light activity. They don't have a nomenclature for it. They don't have a means of identifying it. They don't have a body of evidence proving. All you're doing is describing. Understand what the ordinary target individual is. You're describing it, and you're freaked out by it because, okay, what is that? All right? It's demonic. It's out of hell. And the entity is engaging what is terrorizing someone like that, where they are not armed with evidence. So the ordinary target individual, likely unsophisticated, likely freaked out. They're not paranoid. They're not tripping. They're engaging what is reacting as a normal, sane human being who is being chased down by the living dead in the most demented ways possible. The demented ways that those demon-possessed people know are mentally ill, and they secretly target someone in plain sight in ways in which nobody's heard of. And you are automatically writing that person off as being mentally ill. And you are adding to the harm. Okay? So 5CXH279, sexual assault and battery. Those demons are targeting American citizens who are likely going to report to someone that they shouldn't, lacking in wisdom, okay, and knowledge, and I understand that. This is not, this is something that is the product of what is the work of Satan. So it is designed to overwhelm an American citizen. It's a product of bullying. So you have what are an entity of cowards who are stalking and monitoring and terrorizing, harassing one person, freaking one person out. And that one person may or may not call themselves reporting what they see or what's happening to someone, and that someone that they're reporting it to is a demon, is a part of the entity that is poised to criminally defame them. Oh, she's talking about like insects that look like light that are moving all over the wall. She's talking about like a fake sun. What is a fake sun? What is that? Okay, this person needs to be, and that's how you get criminal defamation, and it is very real. The fake sun, as I'm showing you in the documentation, that's the entity's illusion. That's mental illness and behavior that belongs to that entity. And the entity's engaged in that, stalking in planes. Oh, that's mental illness that belongs to that entity. Stalking as a whole dead population, that's mental illness. License 9KYM790 included, and that belongs to that entity. And that's exactly how it's going to be asserted and addressed in a courtroom where the living dead are going to be subject to what is subject to the jurisdiction of a federal court, because this is terrorism in the United States. It's gang violence. And the gang members are all demon possessed. Not a cartoon, not a movie, not exaggeration. The evidence of the P.O.C, the engineer light, the amplified audible, like all the demonic features, that is a proof to you that these are not normal, healthy people. These are demon-possessed people who are, again, their behavior, their mindset is animalistic. It's Neanderthalic. It is barbaric, psychopathic. And it wants to, and it seeks to, and intends to present as normalcy, like you and I, those who are not demon-possessed. And not the demons that are lying, talking about, I lead Bible study, and I ain't got no demon. I love Jesus. And they're as demon-possessed as the Satanists that gathered together in his synagogues. Okay? They're demons. You know them by their deeds, not their audible activity. Okay, the entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct, and they're doing so while the targeted individual is very reasonably freaked out. And it will never, ever be confused with mental illness ever again. That's criminal defamation. That's the product of gang stalking. And that entity is going to be appropriately diagnosed and criminally prosecuted. And that's what I'm subject to in a parking lot, a dark parking lot, and you have light flying around on the vehicle. And I'm surrounded with what is a body of evidence proving that I'm not imagining anything, and neither are you as you look at it. You watch it like a movie, right? And that's the intention. Because not only am I going to wow the federal court, justice is mine. I said you're going to prison, and you're going to federal prison. I did more than prove it, and justice is requiring nothing less. Nothing less. P.O.C. It is currently 7:54 p.m. That is the entity that is much more west, actually northwest, than they are when they're stalking me at the OVITT Family Community Library. And they are at the same elevation while I'm on Euclid Avenue, have not heightened in any elevation, not engaging in any takeoff, but are admittedly engaging in stalking. And that is very foolish and criminal conduct, terrorism, in fact, in the United States, that entity, everyone associated with this criminal conduct is going to regret, including third parties, 6XDR611. 6XXN310. All the demons are pacing on traffic cameras. They're driving south on Euclid Avenue. They're driving north on Euclid Avenue, and they're gang stalking with that airport that is flying across the ARCO parking lot as I arrive at ARCO, so that plane activity immediately sounds. That's an entity that's not taking off from any airport at 2500 Airport Road. They're now flying on the opposite side of the downtown Ontario luxury apartments. The opposite side is where the library is. That's what they were doing last night on the opposite side of that apartment. As though the 280 North Limit apartments where these old people live, over 55, who are living in senior citizen housing, will have planes taking off above their apartment. No, that's not the case. And you're also looking at the entity that was just flying west, where I'm at Vesta and Vine, and you're at the same elevation, same volume, same nuisance conduct. 8PSF042. License 9EVX937. License 9KYM790. And going to Gloria's Cochinas, that's engaged in federal group stalking and monitoring. And fully relevant, I want to be clear, is the deportation policy. Every customer, every employee that are engaged in the pattern of conduct, any and all immigrants are subject to deportation. 9VFB502. License plate 9VAT141. 9GLM320. 8URZ072, and as you can see, the entity's gang stalking by the state is the ongoing evidence which serves to prosecute every third party that I'm documenting right now. 9WCR667, they're all in relevant position, keeping me under surveillance while the government is stalking in things like planes. That means you know who I am and you know where I'm at, and so does everyone else in relevant position in that environment that includes things like engineer light and a fake sun. Speaking to what is very much tracking my every step, including keeping my vagina under surveillance. 8VZK518. 8RQN382, 6TRA371, 9MXH993, P.O.C. That's the Ontario International Airport, which I captured in images, stalking, flying over the storefront at the same elevation that they are. You can hear it, the audible activity. I'm at Euclid Avenue and East Street, where the fake sun was present, rising this morning. And I reminded you about November 25th, also giving you what is clarity regarding nothing other than stalking. The demons are surrounded, and the demons are surrounded, and you're talking about what are demons that have, again, low intelligence, but for some reason, a high ego. I don't know how you... But this is, again, delusional conduct. Very high ego, very low intelligence, very low barometer regarding learning even. Even if you're a fool, you still have a low intelligence quotient because you do not learn. This is, again, no formidable adversary. This is nothing other than what is the use of brute force, thinking that you're intimidating or instilling fear because you have a gun on your hip. Not only since you're stalking me with that in my face and communicating what is malicious information while you're engaged in criminal activity, which is also not a mystery, you're going to prison. And just because you have a disdain for believing that doesn't mean it's not happening. You're going to prison. prison for stalking me in planes and helicopters. You're going to prison for engaging in what is cooperating with kidnapping and murder by gang stalking governments like the Ontario Police Department. You're going to prison for gang stalking and spending millions of dollars using what are corrupt airlines that are devoted to and invested in terrorism, like what UPS is doing in Kentucky. That's what's stalking me at Euclid Avenue and East Street. You're going to prison for conspiring my murder via criminal defamation. Criminal defamation is accomplished by this system, gang stalking. But it all presupposes that you don't have evidence to prosecute that government. Those are the demons that are no formidable adversaries. All of the demons together, all of them are surrounded with evidence, insurmountable. That which you cannot reasonably contend with, nor can you actually contend with it. You know what it's going to be in court? It's going to be crickets. All right? That's another reference to the vernacular, meaning you're not going to be saying anything. And anything that you do say, it's literally legally irrelevant. License plate. EJ99 Mary 82, a paper plate, sexual assault and battery with the government that is stalking as a matter of evidence by commercial planes. This is P.O.C. Jason Fields is going to prison for all of the above. It's 7:59 p.m. All right, ARCO at 434 North Euclid Avenue, that has the heavy plane activity and the heavy documentation regarding the fake son, and the entity stalking by the Ontario Police Department is engaged in sexual assault and battery with the people of the state with whom ARCO is gang stalking me, and so is ARCO's employee, license 8 Edward Indiana Paul 592. ARCO is currently making money off of gang stalking me, sharing in what is group sexual assault and battery, sex offenders that are stalking and conspiring the murder of the person that they're stalking, and sharing in what is tag teaming with engineer light while they touch all over your body. BL7OR81 4YKK121 and license 9DJF381, and Chevron located at 506 North Euclid Avenue, and Chevron's employee. They are on surveillance cameras. It's 8:21 p.m. The entities engaged in sexual assault and battery at the Ontario Veterinary Hospital. Literally, and this is how you know that the entity's pattern of conduct is centered on light, where they're monitoring. Like this sex offender, African-American male, license plate 6BDU548, engaging in terrorism and sexual assault and battery. And the entity, as you document the fact that they're engaging in sexual violence, like monitoring your vagina, they will engage in what is groups of people going into the bathroom to repeat that sexual offense. This is what they do with regard to what is monitoring evidence and engaging in more of that sexual violence, more of that harassment, more of that terrorism, more of that psychological torture. This is what this entity is doing, not just by the demons that are gang stalking on the roads and the highways. Starbucks, Chevron, the UNICARE Community Health Center, this entity that's gang stalking as a government, the entity that's gang stalking through every represented household, as I'm prosecuting an entire entity everywhere where everyone lives, with regard to where everyone the businesses that are around, and I'm prosecuting, and it's not limited to business hours. Relevant to that is, for example, the demon that is going into the Ontario Veterinary Hospital clinic to stalk in the path, sits there for a couple of moments, even though they don't have to. They literally can drive on the property, drive around it. That's using the venue as a place for criminal activity and furtherance of murder, which is going on a ceaseless basis while the government flies over that business when it's open and when it's closed down. And the entity is stalking with a fake sun and a fake moon, maintaining that engineered environment when it's open and when it's closed down. And the people of the state engaging with its gang stalking an American citizen parking in that parking lot to commit sexual assault and battery. That is literally sitting and engaging in what is a premeditated form of sexual violence. That's how obsessed they are with what is sexual violence, which is inherent to gang stalking. The entity that is monitoring you is an entity that is violating your person. And they're also sex offenders while they are doing so, and a whole fake sun remains over you while they're all molesting you. The only reason why you haven't recognized that you are the focal point is because the engineer light's touching all over everything. The unlawful feature is that the engineer light is touching you while it's serving a criminal purpose in furtherance of your murder, where a government has no constitutional or human right or authority to violate your human rights to engage in criminal monitoring in the first place, stalking and surveillance. This is an entity that is a sex offender, and that's exactly how gang stalking is going to be prosecuted, an exceedingly violent sex offense, and it's an act of terrorism. The entity is doing so in the shoes of the state. The entity is engaging with a sexual assault and battery via Ontario Veterinary Hospital. In other words, this is what I want to get to. Doing so while they are maintaining, just like they are with the fake sun, that's how you know that their criminal activity is centered on engineer light. This is the entity that's engaging in that while they are maintaining the pattern of conduct in concert with the demons that are admittedly targeting with the people who are going to prison for stalking stalking with the City of Ontario, who are going to mental asylums for stalking with the City of Ontario. That's providing evidence. I want you to hear the exact same plane activity. P.O.C. And the ARCO employee that's engaged in sexual assault and battery, and I'm also going to prosecute ARCO for sexual assault and battery. Remember, that's sexual violence that precedes murder. License 8 Edward, Indiana, Paul 592. And ARCO and its employees do so with impunity, just so that you understand the analysis behind the group conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is also where the entity was stalking conspicuously by the Ontario Police Department under that fake sun. Don't forget that. This is a ceaseless pattern of conduct. The entity that's engaging what is forgetting what they did 2 minutes earlier is going to be prosecuted with the totality of those facts. This is the entity that is gang stalking and doing so in that specific environment with this level. The impunity is relevant to what is foolishness. They're fools. Okay, these are fools who are being dragged. I'm dragging them, and I'm going to drag them in a court, and I'm going to take all the money that they made from gang stalking me, all the money that they made from stealing from me while gang stalking me, and I'm also going to prosecute with regard to what is destroying the reputation, so that every company that's engaging in the pattern of conduct, which is every company in California, is engaging in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murder. They're monitoring American citizens. You need to know that about companies like Chevron and Starbucks and ARCO and Southwest Airlines and every airlines associated with the Ontario International Airport, a gang stalking venue, engaging in what is conspiring against the lives of an American citizen, which is the unprecedented basis to totally remove an airport, because that's what's happening to Ontario International Airport. It's being shut down. It's currently 8:25 p.m. This is P.O.C. The entity is engaging what is monitoring on the venue of the internet, stalking me as I go from the OVITT Family Community Library to the Stater Brothers. Literally the plain activity, the stalking with impossible light, which is the sexual violence of mentally deranged people who are demons, and they're engaged in what is demonic behavior, and this is the criminalization of that demonic behavior, which is a violation of your privacy, it's a violation of your constitutional human rights, and it's all state action, just to be clear. This is P.O.C. This is psychopathic pacing, not traffic. The demons are making up a whole society of stalkers, and they're going to be separated from children. They're going to be removed from this country where they're immigrants, and they're also going to be prosecuted as terrorists who are going to do serious time in federal prison for gang stalking with police departments in the ways in which I've said you're violating those rules and you're going to prison for it, such as gang stalking like you see Craig Hazelwood with the people of the state at 3 in the morning. Those demons are pacing together. That's prison. All right, at Alvarado Gardens, you see them gang stalking Tiffany Sherez, gang stalk with her minor children, her 15-year-old daughter, and her little kid. She likes to engage in pacing all around while LAPD engaging in terrorizing me and stalking me with helicopters. She's going to prison, though. And she will not be receiving any more government assistance. And she's going to have a very hard time getting custody of her children. Okay, this is the P.O.C., and that's the entity that's going to be prosecuted as the terrorists that they are. They're a threat to me. You're gang stalking me. You're chasing a woman down in the middle of the night trying to touch her with light that's not even naturally occurring. The absurdity of your mental illness is a threat on its face. And not only that, you think in your mind that you're also going to keep custody of children. Yeah, this is the entity that's stalking in commercial planes. This is P.O.C. ARCO is stalking with light in the parking lot. This is, again, the entity that is very likely the demons of the City of Ontario. Is this Ontario Police engaged in that P.O.C.? Because that's the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct while they like to engage in stalking, while I document very damning evidence. All right, and that's the agency that's being disbanded, and every kidnapper is going to prison. They are monitoring with the demon that's using the air pump, 8XFB260, while they're stalking with, indeed, the Ontario Police Department. So let me show you that. That's stalking in the path with light. This is mental illness. All right, this is, again, an agency that's listening to me speak to the fact that they were conspicuously stalking, and it's not a coincidence in the environment where the airport is stalking, where the people of the state are sharing in that mental illness, i.e. criminal conduct, that you arrive pursuant to stalking that you were already engaged in. Now, what are you paying attention to? The fact that Sergeant Hall, S. Casas, you have what is R. Lily, and the demons that are refusing to identify themselves while you're engaging in this psychopathic pattern of conduct and furtherance of murder and kidnapping, where you could not, like I said, you couldn't defame a feces-riddled toilet with how unstable you are. This is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct and doing so with regard to what is a demon that's sitting inside of a police vehicle that is seething at what they're listening to me state while they're engaged in criminal surveillance, and they're also engaged in what is reiterating that threat while they engage in that which I dictate. As I state that they're stalking in whatever manner, that's exactly what they engage in, because they are demons who are literally they are beneath me. Okay, with regard to authority, with regard to what is intellect, with regard to what is ability, with regard to any sort of strategy, with not being caught as stalkers as opposed to police officers, and they're engaging in that with regard to impunity. That's going to be noted when these demons are going to be in court. This is a pattern of conduct that Mike Lorenz shares in. This demon is not present as I turn around after referring to the conspicuous stalking by the Ontario Police Department, which is not distracting away from ARCO and ARCO's employee, the Ontario International Airport, Chevron's employee, the gang stalking by Starbucks, that's in relevant position, the demons that committed kidnapping with that Starbucks. This is the agency that's stalking together on July 4, 2025, and they're going to prison. L. Edwards, Alex Escobar, very heavily documented gang stalking me under the fake sun, by the way, 2022, 2025, and he's committing kidnapping. He's a demon that's stalking me as an agency, a pattern of conduct under the fake sun, and that's shared by a department that engages in cockroach conduct. As I refer to them, the cockroaches come out of the crevices where they're stalking and lurking. P.O.C. and the entities engaging in that with regard to what is evidence that's going to serve to prosecute the co-conspirator, the people of the state. The demons that are sitting around stalking with light on behalf of the terrorists, the Ontario Police Department. The demons that are stalking under the fake sun in concert with the demons that utilize helicopters to follow me around. Contrary to the audible activity of, again, a psychopath, which is so-called Sergeant Hall, that would like to convey a false idea that I'm the least concerned of them. I'm the most boring subject, but you're monitoring my vagina. You're stalking in a dark parking lot. You're arriving the moment that I refer to you. You're following me around in helicopters every day. You're gang stalking me and making up reasons to be in my face, which there is no such thing. That's the entity that's conspiring murder. And while you have an encounter with a demon that's stalking you bearing guns, that's an entity that's threatening your life, and they're going to prison for that. It's P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 8:30 p.m. where that entity is engaging in that with regard to knowledge of documentation. The ARCO employee very heavily documented gang stalking me with the Ontario Police, by the way. 8 Edward, Indiana, Paul 592. And everybody whose license plate I just read, stalking on behalf of the Ontario Police, who arrived to conspicuously stalk while they were vicariously stalking the entire time. These demons maintaining light activity. These demons maintaining the pace and conduct. And the entity is acting directly while a demon, a psychopath, a sex offender, is in a police vehicle stalking in the specific environment. Okay, it's 8:31 p.m. This is P.O.C. License plate 9RSJ918, stalking with the Ontario Police Department. And the Ontario Police engage in conspicuous stalking, they're being disbanded. So these are stalkers, and then they engage in criminal summoning, talking about these demons submitted a request regarding a noise disturbance. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct. It's called criminal summoning, and you go to federal prison for criminal summoning. It's a malicious act of terrorism. It's 8:32 p.m. Ontario Police, stalking vehicle 1073, engaging in surveillance in the parking lot. This is a white male, license plate 1661859, rather. And they're stalking with the people of the state. They're doing so with engineer light. That's pacing on Lemon, pacing on what is East Street, pacing on the property of Chevron, and arriving pursuant to what is monitoring evidence. That's a sexual assault and battery that the Ontario Police are engaging in together with the people of the state. License plate. Stalking with the police is federal prison. License 9NRN303. And I just want to be clear, those are the demons that engage in criminal summoning. Okay? This is P.O.C. The entity is stalking right here, which you already know. You can hear on the podcast. They're capturing images, stalking the entirety of the route from Stater Brothers back here as an airport. They're stalking with the police department in doing so, exposing a gang stalking police department in doing so. And they're also gang stalking in the specific environment where I have, again, multiple legs, more than two. Shadow that is magnified into the street. That demon's engaging in what is an act of terrorism, conspicuously stalking as a police department engaging in surveillance, while they are also seeking to masquerade as having authority under the law. You don't have any authority. You're engaged in federal stalking and monitoring. You're engaged in surveillance. You don't have authority under the municipal code. You're stalking via the municipal code. You're engaging with a stalking via Section 602 when Starbucks is gang stalking like the evidence shows. I'm going to prosecute them. And they're stalking with ARCO. ARCO's posing a threat with the employee. Chevron's posing a threat with the employee, with the demons that are stalking in the path in the specific environment. All right, that is not rationalized with the artificial light, the street lamps. This P.O.C., that was a white male engaging in surveillance, stalking in the path. As I refer to them, the entity engages in what is that conspicuous stalking. They behave like cockroaches. Okay, you put out a piece of cookie, i.e. you refer to a criminal act that the Ontario Police Department have engaged in, they will engage in it in real time, and I've documented that over and over and over again. That's not a coincidence, especially in the specific environment. That department is being disbanded. Mike Lorenz is going to prison. He's exposed as a domestic terrorist. And it is an unprecedented prosecution. It's unprecedented criminal conduct. That is not a conspiracy theory. It's proven beyond a reasonable doubt and to a scientific degree. This is P.O.C. That's engineer light moving over a house. Those are not headlights. The Ontario police are stalking. This is P.O.C. It is currently 8:35 p.m. Alrighty, capturing video, as you can hear. The entity is stalking, then the entity engages in surveillance. So the demons are pacing all around. Ontario police are monitoring on communication devices, keeping me under surveillance. They're doing so in the environment that you're already aware of. The entity is also doing so with knowledge of what's being documented. This is all that you are considering when you are prosecuting, and you're also recognizing the level of terrorism that an American citizen is subject to as they're committing the act of gang stalking with the knowledge that they maintain and the criminal purpose that they maintain as they commit it. You're engaging in surveillance, so you're engaging in surveillance with regard to also documentation. So as you talk about the fact, I get really scared when they arrive by the helicopters, the terrorists will engage in more and more stalking you by helicopters just because you communicated that threat. Just because you communicated that you are scared of it, or you communicated that you don't like it, or you documented it at all. This is what the entity is doing with regard to surrounding with what is engineer light while you're stalking. And they're stalking on behalf of the sex offenders, the Ontario Police Department, whose job it is as compensated terrorists to keep me under surveillance in furtherance of murdering me. That's why you have a fake conservatorship with my name on it, and I know nothing about it. I had no participation in it, and that is unlawful and fraudulently procured. It is also directly relevant, but that I just so happen to be gang stalked while you have a defamatory mechanism unlawfully procured concerning someone that under no circumstances has any sort of consent, knowledge about it, nor is it even necessary. It's absolutely unlawful. It's not a coincidence that the entity is gang stalking. The entity is engaging in what is maintaining conservatorship, while terrorists like the Ontario Police Department, who commit kidnapping and then they engage in criminal defamation. That is, when a police department is stalking you and they commit a kidnapping, they're doing so while they're claiming that you committed a crime. They're doing so while they're claiming that you suffer from some mental illness. That's why they had to conduct a health check and then take you to the hospital against your will. Where they're in that hospital gang stalking. San Antonio Regional Hospital, Arrowhead Regional Medical Center. And they're engaged in that pattern of conduct pursuant to what is the necessity to disparage your character, so that a secret and fake conservatorship, so that an engineered and manufactured marriage on paper to you, to me, that's my circumstance, will accomplish what is stealing all my money and property. Doing it by defamation, and the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police Department, the gang stalkers of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, the gang stalkers of the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court, the gang stalkers of the Arrowhead Regional, Arrowhead, but the gang stalkers of the American Medical Response in the Ontario Fire Department, and the gang stalkers of the San Antonio Regional Hospital, Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, the people of the state at OVITT Family Community Library claiming that you're molesting a child, while they're engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring and lying. Remember, upon fact of federal group stalking and monitoring, that's no ordinary lie. That's a lie in furtherance of criminal defamation, because the entity is trying to steal your inheritance, trying to steal your wealth, trying to steal your money, trying to steal your identity, and it's government conduct. The entity that is so obviously and just blatantly stalking as an airport is going to regret it in court. There's no controversy here. There's not even any question about how they did what they did. There's also, thanks to the P.O.C., no question about how this system operates and how it's designed to affect any American citizen. Someone like myself who has been criminally defamed behind my back and also in my face while you're gang stalking me, and you falsely accuse me of crimes. You stalk and monitor me, and then you kidnap me, and they claim that I'm a criminal or claim that I'm mentally ill. And this is what an American citizen who's bullied by this, by cockroaches who are stalking like the Ontario police. As they hear that their name is being referred to, so they arrive to conspicuously stalk. That's a threat. You're going to prosecute the entity that has a taste for threatening American citizens that are also documenting and enforcing their rights. They have a disdain for respecting your constitutional rights. They have a disdain for what is your constitutional right to privacy and to not have your genitalia kept under surveillance by their third-party gang stalking sex offenders, the people of the state. They have a disdain for actually the law and the oath that they take. That's just, again, the entity that's cloaking itself as being police officers who have authority under the law, who are actually protecting and serving. The Ontario police, the entity, the state of California is not. This is a system that I'm prosecuting. And within the system that I'm prosecuting, the state of California, the city of Ontario, the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police Department, the people of the state, every single last one that had anything to do with kidnapping and defaming me. That happens in a plethora of ways within this P.O.C. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. And while you are exhibiting severe mental illness, like being documented as a gang stalking pilot, like being documented as a gang stalking police officer, oh, those are some problematic, complex contradictions, oxymorons that are going to be dealt with the practice of medicine and with the practice of law combined. You're going to be diagnosed and you're going to be criminally convicted. My case is already secure. So the entity's engaging in a pattern of conduct and it's literally a trap. They run into it, and that's just with regard to me encountering a stalker. My evidence already surrounds the state of California. My evidence already surrounds the Ontario Police Department, who represent how a pattern of conduct is operating in any city. Okay? The entity's engaging in that and they're already surrounded with the evidence. So I just catch another cockroach that's stalking conspicuously, like this white male driving the Ontario police vehicle in the specific environment relevant to what it is that I'm speaking to. They're engaged in surveillance. The entity's engaged in that documented pattern. While they're engaged in what is a pattern of kidnapping that's relevant to what is a reasonable fear, all right, a reasonable harm that I'm in fear of reasonably based on the pattern of targeting me and defaming me, while people like Jason Fields and Tracy Banks have been just rolling in my dough, paying demons like the Ontario Police Department to keep me under surveillance. While it's directly relevant that there are mechanisms such as a fake conservatorship, and it is fake. A fake marriage to me, absolutely fake. I'm not into marrying homosexual men. This is an entity that engages in that pattern of conduct, and it's directly relevant to a cockroach in a police vehicle stalking in a dark parking lot where I'm looking at multiple shadows. You're keeping me under surveillance and you're stalking me while you have a pattern of repeatedly kidnapping and defaming me. And that's exactly what you're doing. When you are targeting me on the job, I can't go to work without being subject to terrorism. I am forced, for my own protection and well-being, to resign, which is reasonably resulting in what is a financial difficulty, such as sleeping outside on the bench. Where, by the way, the documentation also shows you're stalking me from place to place, including when I'm not outside, in a hotel room, like what you see at the Ontario Airport Inn. You're going to prison, psycho. You're going to federal prison. You light-slinging gargoyles, you feces consumers are going to prison. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and this is the entity that's so obsessed with me, they love to hear me repeat the chorus, and it's actually happening. Okay, that's P.O.C. That's what's relevant to the entity stalking me in the parking lot at the ARCO, where the entity is maintaining ongoing proof for all of us to witness how a city is going to be gutted out upon conspiring the murder of an American citizen. That includes the mayor, that includes the fire department, the police department, the gang stalkers calling themselves EMTs and ambulances, the demons that are maintaining corrupt businesses throughout the city, the people of the state throughout every household, every gang stalker that is relevant to being an immigrant, granted a revocable, absolutely revocable privilege to be in this country. And the line is, at terrorism, you're out. You are out and you're not welcome, and no one will be crying for you. No one is going to cry for a terrorist, because that's what you are. And you have shown, this entity shows how it acts with a complete disregard for another human being. You document them harassing you, you document them stalking, they engage in threatening to commit kidnapping. They engage in more of that psychopathic pacing and harassment with playing. They engage in more. Those are the terrorists that are absolutely going to be booted out of the country, punted out of the country. Absolutely. Sooner than later. All right. It's currently 8:43 p.m. That's the entity that's engaged in what is monitoring my evidence, and doing so while you're engaged in the absurdity of stalking me with all manner of very expensive methods, planes and helicopters and police vehicles. The entity is engaging in what is surveillance, not maintaining engaging in the business of the people, of the courts, with regard to the city halls, with regard to the fire departments, of the police department. They're all engaged in a system of surveillance, which I have broken down for you. Because any courthouse that I go to, all you have to do is look up and you'll see the fake sun over me. Which is speaking to what you know, nothing other than demons pacing all around, stalking. All right, that's P.O.C. It's currently, and it gives, I want to be clear, it gives what is a foundational understanding regarding this level of mental illness that seeks to present in a certain way, seeks to present and hide itself, conceal itself behind a position, seeks to conceal itself behind an income bracket, seeks to conceal itself behind the personal identification of someone, some sort of celebrity, some sort of influence that they exercise. It seeks to conceal itself. That's where Satan is lying. That's where that demon resides. And is also very desperate for you not to see it. Oh, but everybody sees it under the fake sun while you're flying around and doing cartwheels and stalking me in planes and helicopters. It's not hidden anymore. By the way, that's not magical. Okay, you are a certifiable mental health patient that is going to be subject to the assistance that you need. You're going to be rendered that, including against your will. And then you can sit up and fantasize about my vagina all day long while you're locked up. It's currently 8:45 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, gang stalking includes ARCO, 434 North Euclid Avenue, Chevron, 506 North Euclid Avenue, and their employees alike. So the employees are always being prosecuted with the gang stalking business. This is facilitation of the corrupt government system of criminal surveillance. And it's all committed in furtherance of murder. So these are corrupt businesses that are conspiring murder with the government. Okay, that's a criminal prosecution of a business, not just a civil case against a business. The entity is gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport and doing so at what is 8:59 p.m. Doing so while, again, the entity is monitoring evidence and the entity is just engaged in ongoing gang stalking, ongoing harassment and terrorism, while the entity is maintaining plane activity and stalking with impossible light, molesting. You are intentionally engaged in that when it's not your headlights that's skating all across onto the sidewalk while you are driving on the street. The engineer light that you see when they're driving under the fake sun, the engineer light that you see creating multiple shadows projected above your head onto the wall straight behind me while I have multiple shadows on the floor. This is the entity that is stalking with light, and they are intentionally doing so while, again, psychopaths are exposed as such, and they're also exposed as stalkers who are together engaged in a whole system where they murder people. This is an entity that's engaged in that. That's a combination of noise and light while a demon is crossing path. ARCO employee license number. Again, 8 Edward, Indiana, Paul 592, gang stalking with every demon. Hundreds of people gang stalking me at this intersection, and ARCO is making money off of it and is gang stalking, and so is this employee. And it's relevant to the prosecution of that business and the public corruption that ARCO facilitates. The entity stalking with the airport, and ARCO and its employees, the same with Chevron and its employees, Starbucks and its employees, are sharing in that. I'm at the intersection where the relevant positioning, the entity is sponsoring, focusing on what is molesting me with light activity while the entity is maintaining that ongoing sexual assault and battery. During the day, it's committed while the fake sun is present, while the entity is engaging in that same unlawful touching, and all of them are stalking. All right, this is excuse my French, a demonic orgy that you do not consent to, and it is impossible for you to consent to criminal activity while the government is conspiring your murder. The entities engaged in that based on the engineered nature of this light, they're going to be prosecuted as the sex offenders that they are. It's an unlawful touching, and it's an unlawful touching by an entity. That's an unprecedented sex act committed by the government that's going to be prosecuted for the first time in history as a sex offender. And businesses are going to be prosecuted for the first time in history as sex offenders. All right, and the entity has been exposed, and this is recognizing that sex offenders are not merely individuals. Sex offenders make up what is an entire state, an entity. Sex offenders are entities. Okay, this is the population who are the people of the state. Domestic terrorists. The entity stalking by commercial plane, and that is shared by third-party license plate 8 Nancy Uncle Bob 236, license plate 7 Kelly Apple Wendy 476, gang stalking at the gas stalls in relevant position where the entity is relying on what is present in the path in that engineer light while I'm being sexually assaulted on a serial basis, while a bunch of demon-possessed people who are psychotic are stalking me together, and doing so while there's no secret conspiracy to commit murder at all. So now they're engaging in what is gang stalking with regard to what is nothing other than bare-bone mental illness, and their delusion is also relevant because there's no sacrifice that's being accomplished. This entity has sacrificed itself. All right, this entity is still stalking, nonetheless, still engaging in what is an ongoing, completed cycle. The crime and the secret crime, the objective of the crime is impossible to achieve, and everybody is watching them, still engaging in this conduct, and what you are being informed of. The mental illness of an entity is very real. The mental illness of a population is very real, and it's a very real threat. Okay, this is P.O.C. They're not stealing my money. They're not avoiding federal prison. They're certainly not escaping what is evidence that the whole world is witnessing. You know, and nobody here is questioning. There's no dubious nature of my evidence whatsoever, you know exactly what you're looking at. And everybody, we are all watching, and I'm watching, I've been watching, and I've been documenting and publishing, and you're looking at what is the history of evidence that I've maintained while this entity has been warned years ago that this is going to happen. And while it's happening, while they're experiencing it, they're stalking. They're still stalking. That's directly relevant. You're going to prosecute just like you would any stalker in a courtroom regarding their severe mental instability. It just so happens that the stalker is the government. All right? It's currently 9:04 p.m. This is P.O.C.